Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be a drugstore slash high street slash Priceline slash Kmart slash cheap makeup kit to start your collection. If you are starting to wear makeup or if you are going to school and you would like to start wearing makeup, this video is going to be my top suggestions for what you can get that is not going to cost you a lot of money. So starting off with primers. Primer is essentially something that you put on underneath your foundation to help your foundation stay all day, matte the pores, keep your pores looking nice and smooth, and basically keep everything in place. It is essentially the concrete of your face. So the one I have here is the L'Oreal Magic Blur. I really like this one. It has a silicone texture to it, so it's going to feel really quite smooth on the skin, but I really like it. It does its job. It keeps everything in place. It doesn't necessarily keep me matte. It's not actually a mattifying primer. It's actually a smoothing primer, so it will go over all of your pores to help the makeup sort of skim over them so they don't look as obvious. But I really like this one as an option anyway. The next thing I have is foundation. So if you are starting in high school or whatever it is and you want to start wearing some makeup, if you don't have problematic skin, so if you don't have a lot of redness or you don't have a lot of acne or breakouts or anything like that, I don't suggest that you get a liquid foundation that is very heavy on the skin, simply because your skin doesn't need it. If anything, you're actually only going to encourage your skin to break out. So if that's the case for you, then I suggest you actually go with a powder foundation over a liquid foundation. It tends to be a lot lighter on the skin, but it will still even anything out and make your face look more flawless. So the one I have here is the Australis Fresh and Flawless Pressed Powder. So as you can see from my one, the pan is pretty much gone. I really like this one. I take it in my handbag and normally touch up with it. If I am having a good skin day, I will essentially just use some concealer under the eyes, spot conceal any problems, throw this on over the top, and I am good to go. I don't bother with normal foundation. So this one is a very good option if you don't have problematic skin to begin with and you just sort of want to even out the tone. Maybe you have a little bit of redness or something like that, but you don't have a lot of stuff to necessarily cover. If you do have things to cover and you do have acne or you just want to actually wear foundation, some of my favorite ones from the drugstore are the Rimmel foundations. They have three that I really enjoy. I've only got one here at the moment, which is the Lasting Finish Full Coverage Foundation. So it's the one with the red lid. They do have one with an orange lid, which is more dewy. It's going to leave you with a little bit of more of a shine to your skin. It actually almost looks like it's got glitter particles in it. And there is the other one, which is the blue one, which is sort of like the medium kind of coverage. This one, as I said before, is the full coverage one. I really like this one. It does its job. It stays all day. It's essentially just a very good foundation for the price. And the other one, which I really do enjoy, is the CoverGirl Outlast Stay Fabulous foundation. I have lost the lid. This is on its last legs. It's pretty empty, but it is still a absolutely superb foundation. I think they call it the 3-in-1 because it's meant to prime, conceal and foundation or something. It stays all day, very similar to the Rimmel foundation where it just stays all day. It does what it's supposed to do. It doesn't move, it doesn't wear off. And it provides a really nice coverage. It just leaves your skin looking really pretty, so it does what it's meant to do. So that one's another option for you as well. Okay, so my next category is concealer. I have 4 here to talk you through. The first one is the Maybelline Age Rewind Dark Circle Eraser. This one is a very good concealer to use underneath your eyes. You have a sponge tip to the top. You wind it up. Product comes through the sponge, you dab it on underneath your eyelids, and then you can blend it out with a beauty blender or whatever it is that you're using. This one is very good at actually erasing dark circles, which is what it's aimed at, but it just basically brightens up the under eyes, makes it look like you've had a really good night's sleep. So this one is a very good one for that. It does not, however, work on any spots or anything. The next concealer I have is the Rimmel Match Perfection. This is one with the blue lid, so it actually matches the blue lid foundation, which I don't have. But this one is another really good concealer for underneath your eyes. It just has the like the the bristle application, so you just squeeze it, the concealer comes out, and then you can just draw it on your face like war paint and blend it through. This one is another really good one for underneath the eyes. As I said, it doesn't crease, it does the job, it stays there, it kind of can brighten it up. This one can go on spots, but the one I actually prefer to use to spot conceal any pimples or anything like that I get is the Physicians Formula Concealer Twins, which is this one. So it has a more yellow based concealer on one side and then a skin tone concealer on the other side. The yellow based one, I don't really use it. I think yellow base is obviously supposed to cancel out redness. I can use this on some pimples, but usually I only get sort of 1 or 2 pimples, so it's a bit silly for me to have like little dots of yellow everywhere. So I tend just to use the skin coloured side of this one. It is actually quite a thick concealer, so you just got to be careful. Obviously when you're spot concealing, you only want to touch the actual spot that you need to conceal, and then very, very gently dab that in either with your pinky finger or with a small brush or the edge of a beauty blender, just to dab in the edges so it blends into the rest of your skin, because you don't want to remove the concealer off the actual pimple. It kind of, you know, actually erases the purpose. So this is the one that I like to use for spot concealing. If I do have a light makeup day, so for example when I am using the powder foundation and I don't have any bags or discoloration under the eyes, I really like to use this one, which all of the information has rubbed off it, but it is the Garnier Coffee Eye Roll-On. So you can get this without a tint. This one has a tint in it. This one is super cooling. It has a metal eyeball to it. So what you can do is actually, see that there, so it has a metal tip to it, so you just roll that on underneath your eyes. So if you do have bags or a little bit of discoloration, not heavy discoloration but a little bit, it will just help to cover that up. The cooling sensation plus the coffee extract or whatever it is that it has inside it will just help to depuff your eyes. So this is a really good one when you don't need to use heavy concealer. The next category I have for you is contour. If you are starting out with makeup, you don't need to contour. Nobody needs to contour, but if you like the idea of contouring and you want to give it a go, the one I really like using is the Australis AC on Tour, so like a contour contouring and highlighting kit in the light complexion. So it basically just gives you 6 different products. So you have 3 contouring, all bronzing shades depending on what you want to use them for. So 3 contouring shades, 2 highlighters, and then the middle shade is more yellow toned, which means you can actually kind of dust that on underneath your eyes to get rid of any redness. It works the same as the Australis banana powder, which is really popular for that. So it just sort of cancels out the redness and kind of gives you a more even complexion. I usually use, for contouring, I will use a mix of those 2 shades. It will depend on exactly how sculpted I'm trying to look. If you are not into contouring, the next thing you can try to do to bring a little bit of shape and dimension to your face is using bronzer. The one that I have here is the Revlon Desert Bronze. So it looks like a little bit of a brick. So it has 5 shades in it, like this really white shade, and then 4 sort of more brown tone shades. Normally when you are bronzing, I don't really like to use shimmer bronzers. I prefer to use matte bronzers. Because I am pale AF, I have to bronze most of the time just to give my face a little bit more of dimension. I have 2 lights on me at the moment, so I look even more pale than I normally am. So bronzing just helps to sort of bring more definition to your face, give you a bit more colour. So if you are not prepared to try contouring, I do suggest doing some bronzing. Next category I have is blush. Blush is really good again to bring a little bit more colour back to your face after you've been contouring or bronzing or something like that. Or if you don't want to do either, blush will just give you a little bit more life to your face. Foundation obviously tends to make your face look 2D because it will flatten everything out, and blush will just help to bring your cheeks a little bit further out, give you a little bit more life. So for blush I have 3 products for you, and the first one is this Physicians Formula Naked Blush. It's in like this sort of tan beigey coloured packaging with a kind of rose gold bow on it, and it just opens up with a sort of like a quad of blushes, but they're very tiny. So you can either use it to swirl your brush all through and pick up all 4 colours, or you can sort of pick and choose to have a more rosy blush, or you know, a little bit more toned down blush. I quite like this one. It's a good one just for every day. It's not too overpowering. It's not too much in your face. It's not too like pop of the cheeks. It's easy to blend through. And the other one I have is the e.l.f. Contour Blush and Bronzer. This one is a knockoff of the NARS Duo. So it actually looks like the NARS Laguna and Orgasm Blush. This one, I don't think they have a name for what they've actually called it, just blush and bronzed. But it obviously has it does have a contour on one side, and then it has a blush on the other one, which is again just more of like a rosy pink shade. I didn't mention the contour in this one just because I find it a little bit patchy, but the blush in this one is beautiful, and it's got a little bit of iridescent shimmer to it, so you can go overboard with this one, so just be a little bit careful, otherwise it can look a little bit too much. The next product I have for you is one that will be crossing into a couple of categories for me. It is the Chi Chi Beauty on the Go palette. I only recently got this one from Target, and I really like it. The pigment in here is beautiful. So in terms of the blushes, so you get all of these things. You get 3 eyeshadows, 2 highlighters, a bronzer, a sort of face powder, and then 3 more blushes down the side there. The blushes are extremely pigmented. They have a more rosy, that's the best way to show you. So they have a more rosy toned kind of blusher, which is a very, very pink undertones. They have one in the middle there, which is actually a little bit more purpley undertone. And then they have the last one, which is more coral, so more of a traditional coral. I do like all 3 of them. As I said, they are highly pigmented, so you do need a light hand with this one, and definitely dust off your brush before you go to put it on your cheeks, otherwise you're going to just your cheeks. So you do want to blend this one in. The next category I have is highlighters. If you don't want to play with highlighters, you definitely don't need to add this to your makeup kit. It's just something that you can do to add a little bit of shine above your cheekbones, and most people do it like a little bit on the tip of their nose, above their cupid's bow, maybe a little bit on the forehead, just to add, again, more. It's all about adding dimension to your face. When it comes to highlighters you can get from the drugstore, a lot of them can be very patchy, so there's not a lot of pigment to them, which means when they're on the skin they just don't give the right illusion. Normally I find a lot of drugstore eyeshadows that are more of that champagne white, you know, shimmery sort of tone actually work better as a highlight than they do as an eyeshadow. So the first one I have is one of those, which is the L'Oreal Iridescent Finish 0200 Hourglass Beige eyeshadow. So it is one of their little pot eyeshadows. It's supposed to have a stopper in it to stop the pigment from coming out, but I lost it. It is a beige champagne eyeshadow. I like this one both on the eyes, and I like it not on the eyes, so using it as the highlighter. So on the hand, it is just a very, very, hi Pascal, it is a very, very iridescent eyeshadow. It will, so I got it there, so it will cast just this most gorgeous glow on your face. You can go overboard with it, so if you are not, you're right? So if you are not used to using highlighters, then just be careful with this one, because otherwise you can overdo it a little bit. The other one I have is out of the Chi Chi Beauty on the Go palette again. They've got 2 highlighters in here. These ones are more sort of goldy toned in the highlight, so it's these 2 here. They are definitely more golden toned, so if you are very, very pale, these ones can be a bit harder to pull off because it looks more obvious that you have something there rather than it just being like sort of a glow, which is how I normally like to wear my highlighters. So normally the one down the bottom, which is very golden, I use that one actually more as an eyeshadow than I do as a highlighter, because it is just way too gold for me. But otherwise those 2 ones are very, very pretty. Other highlighter I have for you is in another palette. This is the NYX Butt Naked Turn the Other Cheek palette, which is also a multi-use product for me. But in terms for the highlighters, when you slide it out down the bottom, they just give you some blush and highlighter options. These ones are very similar to the Chi Chi ones, where they are a little bit more gold in their undertones. So if you have very, very light skin, you just got to be a little bit light-handed with it, I think. There is this one here, which is a very yellow-based one, so I don't really like this one at all. I prefer to use that one more as eyeshadow or like an inner corner highlight. But the other two, they do work as highlight on pale skin, but you do have to be very careful with them.